Yo, what's up? It's Monday. The Niners just won a big game. I'm back with Vish Kumaran. I pronounced it right?
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Last week I had him on. It was the first edition of Mondays with Vish, and it was a smashing success. People liked it. I put it on YouTube. A lot of people watched it. People want more Vish. I want more Vish. Vish knows what he's talking about. I was telling him on the phone earlier. His content to word ratio is off the charts. His PFF grade right now is like a 98.7. So we're just going to get right into it. I bring him on just to ask him questions because normally he'd call me after games and just tell me what's what. So now we're going to do that publicly. Vish, what did you think of Nick Mullens yesterday?
Okay, I thought he was phenomenal. I don't think he could play much better. I think the thing is that when we spoke about Nick Mullens last week, I told you that I was confident that he was more than capable enough to play well.
Yep.
And the big concern for me was will Kyle cook up the right game plan? Because to me, Nick Mullens, what he was going to do the best he could do with whatever was provided for him. And I think both questions were answered. Kyle was phenomenal and Nick Mullens was phenomenal. Just another side point on Nick Mullens, the guy really improved. He's really improved. His arm has gotten better. He's gotten better, more confident. He's more comfortable. It seems like the game's slowed down for him. He's playing with poise. He moved better in the pocket. I mean, everything was just better across the board. I thought it was great as a Niners fan to know that we got two pretty good quarterbacks.
It's great for the Niners to have a backup who operates the offense that well. People don't forget, but it's a very, very intricate offense with a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of guys struggle with it, especially early on. Mullens is 4 years deep into it, and you can see it when he's on the field. He operates it as close to perfection as a backup could. I mean, he knows where to go with the ball. It's interesting that you said that Shanahan cooked up the right game plan. To me, it seemed like he loved calling that game, that he really enjoyed calling plays for Mullens. And you made the point in the past that you think Shanahan's keenly aware of that split he has with and without Garoppolo. I think it probably made Shanahan pretty happy to prove that he could do that without Jimmy.
Well, yeah, and he proved that he could do it without Jimmy. He could do it without Kittle. He could do it without Deebo. He can do it with just about anybody.
That's right.
And I think it just speaks to who he is as a leader, who he is as a play caller, who he is as a coach. And
no doubt.
As a Niners fan and to all other Niners fans, we endured Chip Kelly and Jim Tomsula, but we got this. So there was something positive after those 2 years.
Okay, we'll get to Kyle Shanahan, and I know you're very enthusiastic about the job he did yesterday because he was the star of yesterday. But let's stick with Mullens for a few more minutes. Now that we've seen him, he has improved. He's 25 years old. He's starting to look more like what he's going to be. Does he remind you of anyone? And what do you see his future? I mean, let's project how many years is he going to be in the league and what's he going to be after the league? So let's start. Who does he remind you of now?
Okay, first, I want to address the second part of your question.
Sure.
So the Nick Mullens, the person to me was going to be a 10-year NFL player because I just think he would push himself to be a 10-year NFL player. And he's a guy that coaches want in their locker room. So he might not be the starter, but he's going to be one of your 53 people.
Yes.
But Nick Mullens, the quarterback yesterday, what he proved physically is that he's going to be a starter at some point in his career, and he's going to have a 10, 15-year career just being a backup / starter, just a guy you put in as a stopgap quarterback. And the guy that he really reminded me of is Ryan Fitzpatrick. And to me, right away, it sounds like it's a little bit of an insult, but it's really not because Ryan Fitzpatrick has played in the NFL for a very long time.
Since I was in high school.
Yes, and he's very, very smart, as is Nick Mullens, which is why he has had success in like 5 different systems with 5 different teams, 5 different coaches, something that's just unheard of in the NFL. And then the other thing is they both are physically limited, but they got a little playmaker and gunslinger to them. And it's where you kind of, when you watch them, you're like, dang, is their arm really that strong? Because they made a couple of throws that made you go, and it's not a great arm, but they make enough plays.
Yes, they're actually playmakers. They're not dinking and dunking. They're aggressive downfield throwers. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he always has like a pattern to me. He'll come out and he'll take someone's job, like someone like Josh Rosen or someone who was supposed to be good, and Fitzpatrick is so much more driven, and he'll take the job and play great for like a month. It's like, oh, Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe he's figured it out. And then he'll have 3 games where he'll like have 8 picks in 3 games. Like, oh, dude, well, we got to bench you, Ryan. I'm sorry. We really love you. So I don't know if Nick Mullens will have that pattern in his career, but everything else about them, they're about the same size. They have about the same kind of over the top. Well, their confidence is different, the way they express it, but they're both extremely confident people, right?
Yeah. And I think Fitzpatrick at this point has become a little bit more with the beard and the kind of post-game outfits has become a little more on
a caricature.
He's become more of a caricature rather than Mullens, who's thought of as very professional and hardworking. And I don't think Mullens will ever reach that point. But I do think the comparison is fair just in who they are as players and the way they operate as people. I mean, I think Fitzpatrick's intelligence is something that's not talked about enough. Like people, I think, say, "Oh, he went to Harvard," and just push it under the table like it's nothing. But the guy went to Harvard and he's played on like 5 different teams. And how many different teams has he had enough games where you say, "Dang, he's pretty good as a quarterback," and that's 5 different systems, which is unheard of. And
he's made hundreds of millions or a lot of money in the NFL. Keep going. Yeah.
And the other point I want to make is that it's a very subtle thing I noticed. They both have this kind of feel and ability to accumulate passing stats. And
big yards.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe it doesn't always lead to wins, but Mullens, whenever he plays, he throws the ball 35 times and he ends up
yards,
close to 300 yards passing. And it's the same thing with Fitzpatrick. Now, Fitzpatrick might throw a couple more interceptions, but at the end of the game, he always manages to throw for 300 yards, which you could call it stat padding, you could call it play calling, helped him out, but it's really hard to throw for 300 yards in the NFL, and both of them seem to do it.
Did you see that stat yesterday that Mullens is the first 49ers quarterback to throw for 220 yards 9 games in a row since Montana?
Yeah, I was very, very surprised to see that because I thought Jimmy would have reached 220 yards in his first 9 starts with the 49ers. So I was surprised to see that, but I think it just speaks to, I mean, Mullens broke all of Brett Favre's records in Southern Miss. So it just speaks to his just feel and ability to accumulate just yards and make plays and stay gritty and battle and do things.
One thing about him, though, that I like is I've noticed you can hear now, since there's no fans in the stands, when the quarterback is killing the play and going to the second play. And he did it a few times, and I was like, is Nick killing to passes? Like, does he want to put the game in his hand? What I thought was every time he killed to a run. So he's not necessarily like happens to get the numbers.
I'm not calling him a stat pad or anything of the sort. I'm just saying he has this knack to throw for 300 yards. It's more a compliment than anything because to throw for 300 yards in the NFL is remarkable, and he seems to do it with relative consistency.
And with kind of relative ease for whatever reason. One more question with Mullens. Where do you see him after his football career is over, which is maybe when he's 40 years old? But what do you see him? And also, because we were talking about this on the phone, start with what your impression of him when you listen to him in press conferences and what that means moving forward.
Okay, so there's a little backdrop to this. So I was listening to the Nick Mullens press conference on Friday, and I was like, wow, this guy talks just like a coach. I call Grant up, and I'm like, Grant, did you hear this dude talk? He sounds like a future head coach. He just talks. He's so intense. He's so hardworking, and he just talks about his teammates and the players and the entire situation like he's the head coach of the team. And Grant was like, yeah, absolutely. And he was like, I see him as a future head coach. And I was like, I totally agree. And obviously, I'm not the guy interviewing people to figure out who's going to be the head coach. So that's a decision I'm never going to make. And maybe he doesn't get there. But based on the way he talks about football and the way he talks to the media, it's so professional. Then everything you hear about him is that he's so driven. He knows everything about the ins and outs of this scheme. And I mean, Chris Sims, who's like Kyle Shanahan's go-to, said that on NBC Sports, he talked about how Mullens knows the scheme. Like he said that Kyle has told him Mullens is like a coach. And it's in the sense that he knows more than just his job on a play. Like he'll rattle out to the quarterback and everybody what the right tackle is supposed to do, what the right guard is supposed to do. And when you see the game in that perspective and you have this just unparalleled drive and grit and want to, and you're so intense and you're so serious, I don't see how he won't be a head coach.
And what's interesting about this, it's not a requirement for a quarterback to have this type of temperament. You don't have to. You don't have to be a coach on the field. I don't know if Joe Montana was. Jimmy isn't, but it's rare. And Nick seems to be the combo of the computer brain, but also the guy who inspires his teammates.
Absolutely.
Like Trent Williams compared Nick Mullens to Kirk Cousins, but I don't like that comparison because no one likes Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins like turns everyone off. And ever since Nick Mullens was like 23, he has this, I don't know if it's ironic or whatever, but his teammates freaking love him. And he has this confidence that maybe he can't keep up because it's a very psychologically taxing job to be a starting quarterback. But right now,
about a quarterback who was a third stringer in a preseason game, won the preseason game late, and the team and everybody was celebrating with him, and he was celebrating like they just won the Super Bowl. Just tells you what kind of a person he is and how much they like him.
That's right. That's absolutely right. All right. Let's talk about the coaching staff. What were you saying?
No, one more thing about Mullens. I interrupted you there. I was just going to ask if you wanted to make your point.
One more thing about Mullens real quick. If he becomes a coach, he's technically part of the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. And what you would bring him, this is 20 years down the line, but what you would bring him on your program for would be for his leadership, but also his knowledge of the system. He's got both. He could be a really highly coveted coach when he's done playing.
Yeah, someone in the comments wrote Gary Kubiak.
Yes,
I like that comparison.
Yes, but a better quarterback than Gary Kubiak. All right, because Kubiak was Elway's backup for a long time, right? That's the comparison.